Waycross presents an election forum. For Issue 3, a proposed bond issue for the Winton Woods School District. When voters go to the polls on November 4th, they will be asked to approve the following issue, which reads as follows. Issue 3. Shall bonds be issued by the Winton Woods City School District for the purpose of paying the local share of school construction under the State of Ohio Classroom Facilities Assistance Program and the cost of other improvements to school facilities, together with, as applicable, new construction, improvements, renovations, and other additions to school facilities, as well as equipment, furnishings, site improvements, and all necessary appurtenances therefore, and capitalized interest, if any, in the principal amount of $76,663,462 to be repaid annually over a maximum period of 37 years and an annual levy of property taxes to be made outside of the 10 mil limitation, estimated by the county auditor to average over the repayment period of the bond issue 8 and 48/100ths mils for each $1 of tax valuation, which amounts to 84 and 8/10 cents for each $100 of tax valuation commencing in 2014, first due in calendar year 2015, to pay the annual debt charges on the bonds and to pay debt charges on those notes issued in anticipation of those bonds. Hello and good evening. I'd like to welcome you to tonight's Waycross Election Forum. This forum for Issue 3, Winton Woods proposed bond issue. I'm Jason Grisgork, Waycross Community Media's Government Access Coordinator. I'm very fortunate to have a very large table here tonight, and that's very exciting because we're going to be talking the proponent side of this. Before any other issues being brought to the table today, the Board of Elections I was notified by the Board of Elections today in that there was no opposition, and thus no opposition to the table tonight. So we are the proponents here tonight. I'm going to let everyone introduce themselves here before we get started. Starting to my left.
I'm Dale Dunning. I'm a resident of Forest Park. Lived in the district for my whole life, which is 73 years. And I'm all for the schools.
Jessica Miranda, Board of Education member for Winton Woods City School District, as well as a parent, homeowner, and business owner in Forest Park.
Anthony Smith, Superintendent. Thank you for inviting us.
Thank you, Mr. Smith.
Steve Denny, Director of Business Affairs for Winton Woods Schools, and we appreciate the chance to be here.
Ron Johnson, resident since 1986, had 3 kids graduate from the Winton Woods School District, and I have a son who is a senior in the school district now.
Wonderful. So as you can tell, we are going to be talking schools here on this issue. So if you are interested and you're joining us tonight on September 29th, please do so. In a moment, I'm going to allow one of our fine members of the panel to start with an opening statement, to just give a little bit here. And at that point, I will open up the phone lines and emails to you, the voting residents at home. So I'll throw it out. Who would like to start to do the opening pitch, so to speak? Mr. Denny? You look like you're ready to speak, so let's start with Mr. Denny.
I'd certainly defer to Mr. Smith if you'd like to go first. Okay, thank you, Jason. We appreciate it. So one of the things that I'd like to acknowledge is that the facilities we currently have served us well. They've gone into play and been there for our students, families, and community members for 40 to 50 years. But we are at a point now where we have to do something to revitalize the educational spaces in which our children learn and grow. We're at a point where it's going to be substantial capital investment no matter what decision is reached on November 4th. And of course, we truly feel, having analyzed the costs, that the most sound fiscal decision is to build new. And the state of Ohio agrees with that. They came in the year 2003 and began a facilities assessment, and this is the state of Ohio. So it's not simply the Winton Woods City School District's opinion. The state said your facilities have earned facility grades of F, And that has been since 2003. So they have not gotten better, despite our best efforts to keep them in good shape and well maintained. Because of that, the state has actually said we're willing to assist the district financially in building new schools, and their recommendation is that we do that.
Well, they've got the easy part. Now it's your turn. Of course, if you're joining us, please call 825-3971, live at waycross.org. Few simple rules of the road. You must be a resident of the district in order to participate. And when doing so, you must give your name and address to our phone caller in the back so that we can just confirm residency. You will not be ID'd on screen, only by your name and part of town you reside in. And the other thing is, we've got precious time here tonight, so 15 seconds to get that almighty question out. So if you are joining us, please do so. My first question to you, of course, is we see that we're in a very tough financial situation as it is. We have homeowners, we have people, the residents, they know what's going on here. But why is now the time to pursue this? Why now, and how can we do that?
Well, first of all, I think Mr. Denny just touched on the state gave some very glaring information that the buildings received Fs in 2003. So the truth of the matter is this should have happened around that time. One of the things that the residents will have to understand about this levy and this whole process, even if we started building the buildings today, they wouldn't be ready until 3 or 4 years from now. So we are actually still behind time, but we're hoping that the residents make a decision to support the commitment to children and support the commitment to education so that our children can learn in the state-of-the-art facilities. The other piece that I think people need to understand, our state dollars, everybody's state dollar supports all of these buildings across the state for other school districts. So when other districts are building, they're using our tax dollars to do that. And we're not getting involved in the process at the right time. So when you look at the surrounding communities, I think everybody's on board with building, or they are building or they have built. And we are kind of wagging the tail along the way.
Of course, the bigger question is that there's a little bit of verbiage that a lot of people may find different when they look at the ballot. We're used to seeing operating levy or levy. This is a bond issue. What is the difference, and why are we using this instead of, say, an operating levy or another type of levy that we're used to seeing on the ballot?
Well, the operating levy is actually it can be for a variety of things. It could be for hires. It could be for supplies. It can be for a variety of things. A bond is strictly for the brick and mortar. That's what it's for. And I think the public needs to understand that the bond cannot be used for anything other than building those facilities.
So basically, when looking at this, the big question, of course, $100,000 question, is if I've got a $100,000 home, what kind of valuation am I looking for? What are you, the taxpayers, Mr. Johnson, what are you looking to pay if this were to pass?
They gave us the actual chart that broke it down and said if you have a home of $100,000, I think our cost will go up maybe $200 for the year. So divide that by 12 months, it makes it so that it isn't going to be a really big impact on the average homeowner in the district. And you're also trading in Hugo for a Mercedes-Benz. You're going to have top of the line, so it's going to be very cost effective.
That's pretty good.
Of course, as you said, the state came in and said these facilities are just not up to snuff. How, as a board, does that? And I mean, I know this doesn't really fully go with the whole idea of the bond issue, but I think it helps in the motivation. How does that, as we'll go with Jessica here as a board member, looking at this, what does that do to you as a board member and say, our buildings are Fs? And then we'll ask that to you, Mr. Smith, as well.
Well, I can say for myself it was very alarming, Jason. I was not aware, even being a parent in the district at the time I ran for a board member. My daughter was a kindergartner. So I was in the building that she goes to school in, but when the kids are in there, it's a lot different than when the kids are not in the building. So as the board took tours of each one of our buildings, it was very alarming, and it was very clear we need to do something now.
And Mr. Smith, I mean, I'm sure you echo the same sentiments, but
the other part, and this is the exciting piece for me, I came from a district where they did build new buildings, and they were very successful with that transition. Kids did better academically, kids came to school more often, but I did my homework prior to becoming the superintendent of Winton Woods, and I knew that the buildings were rated low, but I came anyway with the intention of helping this community be revitalized.
of course, when we read the roll-in as it scrolled through, there were a lot of numbers, and there was a very large $1 million number there. That is very frightening. What, in totality, is this total project going to cost us, and where do we see 5 years, 10 years, 15 years down the line?
I'll be happy to take that, Jason. The total project cost is $110 million. That is determined by the state of Ohio. That, again, is not a Winton Woods figure. If you participate with the Ohio Facility Construction Commission, they have a certain set of rules and guidelines that they insist that you follow in order to receive the co-funding. And so the state has offered to pay $33 million of that amount, and that is based on the property valuation of the district as it relates to all the other schools in the state. So as long as we follow their program, they match that money. So the local share is $76 million, and that includes $10 million in what are called LFIs, which are certain locally funded initiatives. And that is for construction sub-projects within the project that we know are necessary, but that the state does not always help fund. Two of those that we're very interested in hearing more from our community about are possibility of shared spaces, where it would be inside a district-built building, but it would be for community use. And we're also very interested in hearing from our residents, with our emphasis in the district of fine arts. We're also interested in hearing feedback about an auditorium space. So those are two very possible LFIs that we have received feedback from focus groups that are needed. But we'd be very excited to hear from the residents on their thoughts on those things.
Jason, Steve mentioned the auditorium.
Yes.
Usually with the funding, the way that it works from the state, they don't fund an auditorium. So that's something you would have to fund on your own. With the resurgence of the arts program, just how outstanding they are, that would definitely have to be part of our formula based on how well our kids are performing in the performing arts.
And if I might add one more piece to this puzzle is this is a capital investment. It's a reinvestment in the community. However, and this again is where the business management piece comes in, the cost savings from the efficiencies in these buildings and going from 6 buildings to 2 buildings will save an estimated $1.5 million per year. So over the lifetime of the buildings, in real 2013 dollars, it will actually pay for itself in operating savings. That doesn't take away the capital investment that is present, and that's indeed why the voters are being approached respectfully, and we're asking them to consider this.
In addition to that, it will actually restore busing for high school students.
So there are obviously other means that are coming through after this, or congruent with the possibility if this does pass. You did make mention, of course, that 6 become 2. That seems, in a lot of places, a very hard pill to swallow, especially for those who were used to having those neighborhood schools. How do you change the perception of that neighborhood feel to this new dual school district? You can.
There are some really big advantages. In the 712 building, which be at the existing high school location, 7th and 8th graders, we're talking about a campus plan, so the kids aren't all together. But 7th and 8th graders could take advanced courses. And if they can go at their own speed, and by the time they graduate, they could have more AP courses to help them get college credits. That's a huge advantage. Also, I think the neighborhood school only works when the neighborhood turns over and brings in new kids. When people stay there, the kids, there's less population, and then the school's partially filled, or we have to bus them in anyway. But this is really going to be a community center, which is like PTAs can be stronger. It's all in the same location. there's a lot of, I think, social advantages that we can provide or that will be provided.
Of course, I'll need, for those who aren't aware or must know, the two locations that are the possibilities for these two new schools, where are we looking at in the district? I'm assuming, Mr. Day?
Sure, Jason, thanks. Two locations would be the current Green Hills Middle School campus in Green Hills on Farragut, and that would be the site of the preschool through 6th grade campus. And the school in Forest Park would be built on the current site of the high school on Kemper Road, West Kemper.
Of course, we don't like to look to the bad side of things, but we may have to. And if so, if this were to fail, what happens? I mean, we've already heard the things that are possibly going to happen in that positive light, but we do have to look at the darker shadows, unfortunately. And if it were to fail, what happens next?
Want me to take that? The alternative was to remodel or renovate. And that was like $67 million. So we're looking at 67 versus 76. So, and if we renovate, we're not going to design, the building will not come off like a new building should, with security against intruders, sprinkler systems, you know, stair halls that aren't one way only, you know, up and down stairs. We'll still have old buildings, is basically what we're saying. We're going to have some additions. And also, the projected cost is really difficult when you're talking about renovation. You open up the wall, and then all of a sudden, wait a minute, there's something else going on. So cool. I see it as a big variable.
There's another piece to that. I had the pleasure of being in a building where we were in swing space while the building was being built. That's the ideal piece. However, if you are in swing space, it does challenge your educational opportunities. So, you know, when moving kids to swing space to another location while you're building buildings, that works. However, trying to restructure a building while you're living in it is a nightmare.
We will go back to the positive aspect of this, and if this does pass, when do we look to start seeing the future of Winton Woods schools? Do we have some type of timetable where the children, as we're looking at, possibly will not be disrupted, but will continue the flow until these new buildings are present?
I'd say the absolute earliest, and just keep in mind, if you stick a shovel in the ground today, you're looking at, you know, design, collaboration with the community, and the construction period lasting about 3 years. Can go up to 4 years, and these are sizable buildings in order to get those economies of scale that we're after and generate those cost savings that our community tells us is very important to them. So you're looking at probably an open date of 18-19 would be the estimated opening date.
I think another important piece to that is that there is a lot of community involvement before we do the actual design work. I mean, people always want to say, well, what am I buying? Well, you're going to determine what we're buying. You're going to get involved, and you can, so you can tell what spaces, what's the needs of our community that we can tailor it to, not just like any other school.
But once the community sees the drawings, they become very excited because they know that there's a strong possibility that this is going to be for their kids that they're currently having. The other thing that we're working diligently to do is we're restoring all of our resources and putting a lot of resources in place for students in the elementary grades, because those are the students that will benefit from these new facilities. Sure. It won't be that senior, unfortunately.
Well, again, I think at least in my estimation on this, you're looking now at something that could possibly, when this breaks and as it goes, you're going to be tracking that child that goes from that elementary all the way to that senior year, and having a new barometric, correct?
Yes.
Again, it's a scary thing. We were talking about the change of atmosphere and the change of, basically you're changing that change of culture of how we're doing that. You started that with the the Global Studies program, where that has gone, and now we're looking at something like this. Are we completely changing the idea of the way Winton Woods looks at schooling? I'm going to ask Ms. Miranda that, because of being on the board, and of course having 2 children there too.
Yes. I don't believe that we are changing the way we're educating our children with new buildings. We're putting very strategic things in place right now, like the superintendent said earlier, with the resources and restoring some of the programs like the arts that have been cut in the past and things of that nature. So buildings directly, someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but that's not changing the way we're educating our children. We're already doing that. We're already moving forward. Buildings is just an essential necessity to create those optimal learning environments to keep moving our district forward from here.
We have seen a few talks with the constituents of your area. There have been many town hall meetings, so to speak, if you will. Will this open dialogue continue if the levy were to pass, so that we could see what's going on, that the community has the input, so that Mr. Johnson over there can put his 2 cents in too?
I am going to say yes. I believe that the key is going to be make sure that everybody feels a part of that decision. Try to be as inclusive, and I think the other thing that makes it nice, be really open, and so that if whatever information somebody needs to know, we're actually making it available for them. There's no guesswork, and I think for somebody like me, a taxpayer, when you just lay it all out for me, let me see what it's going to cost, what we get, it just sort of has it so that nothing's being done secretly, and you feel really comfortable that you're getting a good quality product for what the investment you're going to make into it.
What would you say is the most difficult aspect of working with this bond issue within the community?
Well, I think the most difficult part from my seat is where the taxpayer believes that you don't have to do anything. You don't have to build new, you don't have to repair. That's not a choice. You will do one or the other, because the buildings will continue to outlive their use, and the $33 million that's on the table will not always be there. There are some districts somewhere, Jason, that's hoping that we don't do it so that they get the money.
Of course, the big question was, of course, the state is putting in that heavy chunk. You're answering pretty much the major question. If the things don't happen, obviously the state takes that away. You have nothing left to play with, correct?
And the state, here's the other part, the state is not interested in giving co-funding a renovation project. They have no interest in that.
So if I'm understanding this correctly, it would have to be
New.
New construction completely, or nothing at all.
Yes, sir.
So this is the dilemma that the district has to look with. Again, we have to look at that downside. If this were not to happen, where do we go next? What will happen? Will we look in May? Will we look in November? I mean, this sounds like it's a one-shot deal, or am I misinterpreting that?
Well, it's not a one-shot deal, but we have this energy and we have this momentum. We're putting everything that we can put into it to make sure that it is a one-shot deal, but the one-shot deal is to the advantage of students. And so we're looking at it from a different perspective. Some districts say it takes 3 or 4 times. We don't even talk about that. Oops, I shouldn't even be saying that on TV today. But I think one of the major components that we want to make sure that people understand is we're putting everything we can into the process. Jason, you've been to a couple of my State of the Schools.
Yes.
I don't talk about the buildings. I talk about education reform. So regardless of when it starts, we know that it's 3.5 years, according to Mr. Denny's accurate calculations. So we still have to have momentum. We still have to educate the students beyond what we think.
Well, I am being told we are getting down to the bottom of the hour, so I do want to make sure that if anyone has any final wrapping statements that we can get them in quickly, I'll give them at least 30 seconds if you'd like to all make a statement this evening.
Yeah, I'd just like to say this isn't just about the bond issue for the schools. This is about the future of our communities. I mean, if I want to attract good teachers, I want to attract people with kids to come. I don't want to see foreclosed homes. We got to help the people that don't have the money that are on the fixed income, and I think that there's a way with the community input that we can do that as part of this project. So I think we can all benefit and we can all win. And I think that's the way we have to go.
Thank you.
What we're proposing is a little less than $25 a month. It's the most fiscal responsible thing to do So from a parent perspective, from a homeowner perspective, from a business owner perspective, it's the right way to go.
And finally, for my piece, we're not just talking about educating the kids, we're talking about revitalizing the community. So we're talking about having community learning centers inside those schools.
I'd be remiss if I also didn't mention I was a parent. I have 2 children in the district. So it's not just whether or not you have kids in the district, though. That's a big piece. This is for the children that have not even set foot in that school yet and who aren't even born. We get a chance to shape the next 50 years with this decision on November 4th. So just encourage everyone to consider that.
I would just like to say that I think it's just going to add value to our community. When I moved here in 1986, it was one of the great communities of Greater Cincinnati. And so when you look at the buildings from the exterior, they look really sound. But when we did an actual visit and you seen what was going, it's like a car with a beautiful body and you pull and you see the motor, so I just think it's going to add value, add pride. And it's just going to be something that everybody's going to be proud of, that finished product when it is done.
Well, thank all of you for joining us. I appreciate this time that we were able to expound on the issue. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jason.
Thank you.
And I'd also like to thank all of you for joining us as well. I hope tonight's adventure in learning about the bond issue today is enough information to get you to be an informed voter for November 4th. If you need more information in regards to any of the candidates or issues that you see here, you can always go to the Hamilton County Board of Elections website at votehamiltoncounty.org. There you can get the up-to-the-minute information right at your computer. You can also watch all of our election forums online, on your mobile device, as well as on cable, so you have every opportunity to catch up on anything. The important thing is to please remember to take the information you've learned here tonight and vote responsibly on November 4th. Thank you very much.
Waycross takes no position on candidates or issues. We provide these forums so that our viewers may be better informed voters for the November 4th election.